Welcome to the game show called MDM Panel at MacDevOps. Our lovely contestants are Joel, Henry, Eric, and Katie. This game show is brought to you by MacDevOps. Okay, first question for the panel. Declarative device management, yay or nay? Joel.
Oh, why are you going to me first?
I see you.
Good. Oh, well, I guess that's good. I want to believe. I do. I'm also looking for real-world use cases of where this comes in. I mean, there's no doubt that this is more of an MDM vendor problem than an MDM consumer problem. I don't know that there's that many admins that look around and say, I really want profiles that turn off at some point in time, right? We were talking about this earlier today. If you're in front of a regulator and you've got to go through what your compliance policies are, and you say, I've got all these profiles that get turned off at random times, if the user does various things on their device, I don't think that's a really great answer, right? So the magic of DDM is maybe more in being able to layer things together. That, I mean, there's beauty there, but it's also a serious amount of complexity. And I'm not overly optimistic that it's more complexity than maybe is worth on some of the benefits there.
So we'll call that a no.
Cautiously optimistic. How about that?
Yeah. Henry?
Yeah, basically I'm curious about the reality of seeing, as Katie outlined, so what will change in quantity. And I think from what I've seen so far, the reporting, what you get back in declarative, and you're using it, you have the device channel, you have the user channel, you get a lot of more info, so that's pretty nice. Yeah, but it's just starting right now on macOS, and I think last year iOS already had that capability. Yeah, we will see.
I'll call that a no. Okay, Eric?
I would say I'm optimistic. I think it's a step in the right direction. I kind of see the vendor rollout going in sort of 3 stages. One is let's make sure that the admin doesn't notice any changes, which is just let's get it working, make sure that nothing is changed. So like a very unexciting release is kind of the best case scenario. I think the second stage is let's fix things or at least improve things that are at least broken from the admin perspective, software updates.
What?
And I would say like the third stage is kind of what we don't, like none of us really know yet, like where can we take this? And I think that is pretty much up to the vendors to figure out, where is this going and like how can we really unlock the power of it? So.
Okay, third no. I'm just kidding, just kidding.
I'm going to go with a yes.
Oh, okay.
At least partially because there are use cases like Joel was just talking about, profiles that turn off. There are actually use cases for that. I'm thinking about schools that want content filtering turned on during school hours and turned off after school hours. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. And I think what is particularly, what gives me optimism about declarative management is that it's rolling out alongside MDM. It's not one or the other. It augments what we've already got. And so I think it's actually gives us a lot of runway to do good things.
Okay, that's a yes.
That was a yes.
Okay, all right, yeah. Next question. Why are we abandoning MDM? What's wrong with MDM? Katie?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
Well, I mean, it stands, there's room for improvement. I talked about it. Like, it is overkill in a lot of cases at scale. A lot of times bad things happen, and we end up building tools around it. So I think that's why declarative is so welcome, that it actually lets us maybe offload some of that traffic and handle things a little differently.
Okay, Eric, what's wrong with MDM? Nothing.
I don't know if I have enough time for this, so I think the biggest issues are just something as simple as installing an app and not actually knowing when it's installed. And the fact that we might actually be able to get notified when that happens is pretty powerful.
yeah.
I think from the end user perspective and from the vendor perspective, it's pretty exciting.
But that's not a problem with MDM.
Joe. Mike?
I mean, but that's not necessarily a problem with MDM. That's more that there wasn't a notification channel to push back any of that. I mean, right, so declarative is cool, right? State management is exciting. I'm all for that. But there are things that could have been solved in MDM without going to DDM.
Well, I suppose if they can both exist at the same time, which they can, as far as we know, then I don't see how that's worse.
Okay. Okay, Henry, what's wrong with MDM? Why are we using other tools? Why does, Central use Monkey and OSQuery and all these other tools? Like, what's wrong with MDM? Why
Because
can't?
it doesn't give you all the info you need or you want.
Wow, it doesn't. Oh,
Very simple.
yeah.
Leading the witness.
I love MDM.
No, and I think what's interesting is what Apple announces the inheriting of the old profiles, but the profiles, are going to be a thing of the past when it's completely going declarative. But Apple doesn't let us know when this will be, right? It could be 7 years or 5 years or just one. We don't know.
We will tell you when you're going to like MDM. Yeah.
You handing this to me? Yeah, all right.
Next question, or are you going to answer the what's wrong with MDM?
What's wrong with MDM? It's
Yeah.
got too many M's, too few D's. I mean, I think we've covered it. It's definitely an evolving protocol, which is cool. It needs to evolve more. DDM is the evolution of MDM, so that's fantastic. It's giving us a lot more functionality and status and stuff that we've talked about. It's hard to make that switch right now, right? I mean, there hasn't been a huge amount of adoption of DDM so far, just because the functionality pieces haven't been there. And it's been a 2-year rollout? So far. And still going. So the fact that you can push profiles the old way is probably just gonna keep that going even longer. As maybe it's even better to have a clean break here, and kind of push more into that side.
Okay,
I
excellent.
don't know if that answered the question.
I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, that's fine. It happens.
Next question. Can we trust MDM to install applications now or ever?
MDM or DDM?
MDM?
That's a loaded question.
Why do I like Monkey so much? Answer that question.
I'll pass this down the row.
What was the question? Can we trust it to install applications? Trust but verify. I think there's a reason why declarative management is looking to help solve this problem. It's a known gap.
Okay. What would you like to see implemented in MDM or DDM or Dance Dance Revolution? What would you like to see? What's missing? What are people asking for? Pick one thing or something.
Oh, well, I'm excited about arbitrary status updates, things that I can define, like subscribe to this one value. I would like to be able to do that on the fly someday.
That was going to be my answer, actually.
Yeah. Well.
But I think just actually seeing software updates fixed is probably the biggest one. Maybe the low-hanging fruit, but
Nobody installs applications or updates them or wants to know if they're installed or updated.
I pass this.
Oh, wow. I'll go with software update too. I mean, that's the easy answer, but would be fantastic.
Okay, well, let's open it up to some more reasonable, sane, friendly audience members. Any questions about MDM or what you want to see in it? Alex? John? Sam, come on, wake up. Okay. A brave member of the audience has decided to speak up.
So there are so many MDM providers. I was talking with someone earlier, and before it was just a handful. Now I can't even keep track. There was a talk already with multiple MDMs, and the strategy I feel like that everyone on the panel has talked about, the known issues and gaps, has been solved in other ways, right? With visibility tools, with OS queries, so on and so forth, and other things. So I just don't feel like my strategy is like I just want to avoid it as much as possible, and because there are other known working tools that I feel are more reliable. So why I just don't think, and I'm sure the panel has an answer for this. Like all of the different vendors and flavors, if you're all depending on the same protocol that has these issues, what's the real difference?
Okay, wow.
Well, I think, I know I can speak for two of us, we don't depend on that protocol. Maybe more of us, specifically to that problem, right? And maybe that's not being fair to MDM. I mean, we've kind of talked about software update and some other stuff that are easy to kind of pile on. But you're right, MDM shouldn't have to solve everything. There's been other management tools that have been out there for a long time. Some very good best of breed. Probably, we've joked about this a couple of times already today, but how many copies of OS Query are running on each of your machines? You might need two hands to start counting, because every enterprise tool ships its own version specifically for this. The flip side of that is, if we could solve that problem, wouldn't it be great that you wouldn't have to have 5 copies of OS Query running on your machine? Just but then, there's an XKCD document or comic here, I'm sure, about 14, standards. We're gonna create that one to fix it, and it's gonna be that one that solves it all. And we're not there yet.
I'm too jet lagged, sorry.
So I think vendor implementation, it plays a big role as well. Just because the protocol exists and everyone's using it doesn't mean it's implemented the same way. So I think that plays, has a big impact on the end user experience as well. And there are different desirable end user experiences. So some products will target different types of end users. I think everyone in this room is probably working in a slightly different environment, and you might have different needs, and some people might be comfortable, using, I was actually talking to a customer recently, and they said that they would rather have 60 knives that work perfectly for what they're trying to cut than have one knife that can do everything just okay. But there are a lot of IT people who also may want one knife because they don't have time or space for 60 knives. So I would say, I think for the person who's motivated and capable and has the bandwidth to implement the perfect tools, it completely makes sense to do that. And maybe MDM differences don't matter as much. But there are other people out there who maybe just need, something really specialized for their needs.
To kind of pile onto that, I'm going to venture to say that the audience in this room doesn't represent the vast majority of admins, right? Y'all are probably a few steps beyond the normal admin who's just like, just do it for me. So that's a huge market opportunity, is to build the just do it for me button, the one knife rather than the 60 specialized ones. So I mean, you're not wrong, but I'm betting you're at least somewhat of a special snowflake.
Derek?
In the best possible way.
Okay, if my memory serves me correctly, MDM was sort of thought up as something to control phones. That's why it's called mobile device management, something like that. And if you read the description from Apple, it's something to do with the mobile device management protocol and blah, blah, blah. But from my perspective, MDM is a terrible name. And now we've got DDM. I mean, and I'm in the position of, pushing to my clients, you need MDM. What's that mean? Mobile device management. Our computers aren't mobile. Like, what do we need that for? Blah, blah, blah. And it just strikes me as incredibly weird that Apple came up with a product that has a useless name because
You're shocked.
Apple, usually, they would call this something like control. You know, they would take one word, a word that everyone understands, that has no more than 2 syllables in it or something, and it would be the name of the product. So you, panel, you are the Apple product manager, and you are asked to come up with the name for this product. 10 points to the winning name.
You'll notice in the developer documentation, mobile isn't in there anymore. Because if you do a search on mobile device management, I don't think you get any hits on the Apple developer site. But if you do device management, you will. So they've already kind of, I don't know if retcon is the word for that, but they've already taken that back out. I don't know that DDM is any worse. I mean, in the world of Gartner terms, EMM,
You need DDM.
RMM, I don't know, we can, IAM. It seems like they all end in M, UEM.
No points to Joel. Next product manager. We need a new product manager.
I like that it could be named control, but then it should be much better.
Yeah, I think that's the best answer. I don't have anything better than that. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you.
Eye control, yeah.
Now you're talking.
Katie, you're a product manager and you're now
I am in product management. I heard YOMF earlier. We'll go with YOMF.
Yeah.
So swinging back to Alex's thing about mobile device, I think that's one of the challenges with all the add-on tools. They don't run on majority of Apple's platforms. They don't run on iOS, iPadOS, tvOS, watchOS. You can't do OS query on them or all these other things. So you're limited on the vast majority of Apple's profitable products. None of our third-party tools work. So if we don't look towards the declarative management as the tool to find out, hey, okay, provision a new iPad. Is Pages on there? I don't know right now. But if declarative can get me that answer faster, I don't have to have my technical team staring at the iPad praying to, the gods of, please get the app on here, or the user being like, I'm missing half my apps. I'm like, I don't know, don't talk to me, call Apple, right? I mean, 1-800-SOS Apple, right? If I didn't, Joel knows that number. We're old enough to do this. But the point I'm trying to make is that if we don't have this forward-thinking view that DDR or whatever we're going to call it is the future, I think the vast majority where Apple is going, we're going to find probably in macOS, I don't know, whatever the next version is, 17 eventually, is going to have more things that have to be in a payload to be locked down that are regular tools. As sudo, you can't do it anymore. And that's where the puck is going. That macOS is getting more and more locked down. This half this conference is here because we're trying to, bypass those lockdowns. But if we can ride that whole, yay, Apple's giving us better eye control, whatever you guys are calling it, eye control protocol to get there, then yeah. Then we at least have one single pane of glass from our choice of view of MDM vendor to control the Apple ecosystem to get our answers. Our technicians are working with our users to have happy customers. That's my thought anyways. I'd like to hear your thought.
I'd like to build on what you just said because you were talking about platforms that you can't currently script against, right? watchOS. What would you do if you could manage watchOS? Stuff. Some people are convinced they need it, and if you know any of those people, I'd like to talk to them, but I'm going to hand this off.
No, I actually completely agree with you. I think when people have asked, what does declarative management mean? Are all my problems fixed? I say no, but it's a step in the right direction, and we have to just keep taking those small improvements and continue to provide feedback, as I'm sure you've all been told to do. But it is true, I've talked with a lot of the people at Apple, and they've basically said the same thing, we can't solve a problem unless we have a clear definition of what it is, and and then they still have to figure out how to solve it. So I think it's pretty exciting to see them taking these steps and even just taking the small wins. So I guess I don't have a interesting answer, but that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, thanks. I think in the beginning when we were starting about this, the focus was very close to the Mac, but you highlighted that the large quantity is devices where you don't have these capabilities, and yeah, therefore, of course, the improvements in declarative give a big benefit for managing these kind of devices. Just thank you for just raising that up again.
Seconded, thirded, fourthed, whatever. And regardless of what we feel, I mean, obviously we've had a little fun up here about maybe our crystal ball in the future. There's no doubt the future is declarative device management. So no, and that's why I think it's very important for everyone to get an understanding of what it does, what it can do, play around with the tools that are out there, with your favorite vendor, tool, whatever, to get a better understanding of that, because that's the reality of what you're going to be dealing with. I mean, we've heard for many years from Apple that agents are going away. We haven't seen that, but it's still probably going to happen. But there's no doubt there's things already today that you can only do with declarative device management, which I think is something Apple has to do to get the vendors and everybody to get interested in it, so then it can hit the critical mass that the new goodness can be there. But absolutely, you're just going to see more of that going forward.
I think lastly, I'll throw this out as like, I wondered personally if I could go without MDM forever for Mac device management. I was like, can I avoid it? As Alex said, it was mobile, and I was like, I deal with Macs, not iOS devices. So I was like, can I avoid it forever? Or it's not, first it wasn't relevant, and then can I just avoid it because it's just weird and ugly and not useful, and I'm a monkey person, now I'm going to install apps. But then slowly I realized at least one case where my users were suddenly presented with, kernel extension, requests and all this kind of stuff. So suddenly I was like, not thinking, as an IT person, you're not trying to lock down and ruin people's lives. That's the only in the off hours. What you're trying to do is you're trying to make the devices work for your users. And so if the end users, like in my case, I deal with a lot of storage and hardware and stuff with kernel extensions. So it was like the only way to enable those kernel extensions and make the smoothly way out for your users was to make some profiles, enroll in MDM, and then just pre-approve those. Or when the security team asks you to install a certain security tool, but the security tool is then, because of Apple asking you to approve installing something, but you're like, no, but we want that installed. We don't want the users to not install it. So when you see reasons or things that MDM can provide for you, then you suddenly realize, okay, I don't need to avoid this forever. I can just use it to enable, a couple of things for my users that are useful. And then eventually you see there's more useful things. So maybe we'll end off with what are some useful things that people are using MDM for, and that are complementing our other tools, and
Can I so all that's true, exciting, good. There are good benefits to it.
Thank you, Joel.
The most useful thing that I'm interested in, mostly because we haven't written a self-service tool, is the actual new self-service options. When you have optional installs with DDM, you get a nice view that just shows it all. And maybe Greg will put that into Monkey. But I'm actually excited about some of that. That's actually a positive thing, right? That you can have optional installs of apps that you just be able to show them all, and then Apple takes care of that and then is able to install it. So I think that'd be very positive for a user.
Yeah, if all the Apple ID and all the VPP and all the other things just sort of work.
So the idea that Joel just pitched was discussed, I think, a day before in another group. So I really like that this optional install gives the possibility for tools like Monkey or other processes to be developed that just like leverage that. And yeah, that's great news to have. But let's see it in reality.
Okay.
So I like to think of MDM as kind of the backbone of like the whole Mac OS, or sorry, not Mac OS, but Apple deployment ecosystem. It is kind of the core mechanism that you're building the rest of your deployment process around. And whether you want to use the full extent of the framework or just small bits to get the other tools there, I think that where it is now and where it's going is doing a good job serving that purpose. So if you do want to use a full suite of your own tools alongside it, at least MDM can be there to get your devices enrolled and get those tools delivered to it. If you don't want that and you want all those tools built in, like that's also something that the MDM protocol and vendors are working towards in certain scenarios as well. But again, like at its core, it's just a way to easily get those tools to your devices and improve the lives of your end users. And I think, Apple did kind of a good job creating something that works smoothly. I'm just kind of comparing it to like the Windows deployment process, and there are definitely other areas where Windows is a lot easier on the admin, but at least like the automated enrollment process itself is pretty darn slick in terms of management. And if you want to, push out your own package using install enterprise applications, and then that's the rest of the management process is determined by Monkey or Chef or whoever else you want to use for it, then I think that's fine. It just kind of depends on your needs. But at its core, MDM will always be that reliable delivery mechanism that will, I was about to say we know will be supported from one OS to another. Mostly supported. Apple's not going to pull the rug on it. So we know that, there may be bugs we have to get around, but the majority of the tooling will still be supported from one operating system to another.
So plus one to everything. I also want to just point out that MDM's development has really been iterative. So like DEP is a great example. You start off with an assertion to say an organizationally purchased device kind of gets locked into an enrollment process. And then a few years later you see you can customize what that enrollment process looks like. You can brand it. You can make it specific to your organization. So it's easy to poke fun because we all have jobs to do and there's stuff we got to get done and the tools aren't optimized necessarily to do it. But we're seeing progress, and I think declarative is a huge step toward that. And the fact that it has been a bit of a slow roll, I think it benefits people because they can see it coming versus like, oh God, you want me to do what by when? So I actually really appreciate the sort of visibility and the evolution of it. And I mean, Joel already said it, declarative is the future, but also MDM is the present. And we're starting to see things like deprecations of programmatic access for different binaries and things like that. You can only invoke certain processes by MDM. And we got to roll with it. So a lot of that has to do with security or other just kind of the direction Apple is pushing enterprise management. So let's kind of just figure it out. I mean, that's what these conferences are really for, is sharing the learnings. And even if it's a little bit of teasing between vendors, that's okay, because we're all trying to solve problems. So
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Henry. And thank you, Joel.
Thank you.